I am Lenny Singletary, and I serve as Chair Community Board 2, thanks to my colleagues on the Community Board. We have Barbara Zollig-Ringer, who serves as a co-chair, and our other co-chair, Mr. Leonard Jordan, will be joining shortly. I remind everyone, for those who may not be familiar, that our meetings are recorded, and so we are now being recorded. I trust that everyone will be on their best behavior as always. With that, I welcome you, and then let's go right into the agenda. So I'd like to make a modification to the agenda. If you have a copy on page 2, under committees to report, the agenda shows that the Finance and Personnel Committee will be presenting second. Due to the delay in attendance of our chairperson for that committee, I'd like to ask that we accept that committee report last. And so the order would be Economic Development, Parks, Transportation, Youth, and then Finance and Personnel. Outside of that, I entertain a motion to accept this evening's agenda. Ms. Barbara Zollig-Ringer, second. Betty Freibush. All of those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand or stating aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Please do so by raising your hand or indicating verbally. Any abstentions, if you would follow the same protocol? Hearing none, the agenda is unanimously approved. Has everyone had an opportunity to read the minutes from February of this year? Are there any noted corrections or modifications? Hearing none, should anyone have any edits, I ask that you bring them to the board office at your leisure. All in favor of the minutes, please raise your hand or indicate aye for board members.
Aye.
Anyone opposed if you follow the same protocol? Any abstentions, would you follow the same protocol? Thank you. Is there anyone from the community, after having an opportunity to look at the agenda, that you have any topics that you'd like for us to cover this evening? Hearing none, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, committees for action. The first committee we have up is Health, Environment, and Social Services. And this evening, we'll be hearing from the co-chair, Ms. Nicole McKnight.
Good evening, everyone. As Lenny just indicated, I am Nicole McKnight, the Vice Chair of the HES Committee, and I'll be presenting the liquor licenses that we approved at our last meeting, which was last Wednesday, March 2nd. And as the agenda indicates, we unanimously approved 9 liquor licenses, and it was 800. So I'll just go over them very quickly. The first one was Alamo Draft House, and that's located at 445 Gold Street. The hours are 9 to 4 a.m. So that's I'm thinking that's 9 a.m. to 4 o'clock a.m. every day. So there will be a new corporate entity due to a bankruptcy transaction, and it is the same folks and same hours, and everything is the same that was approved in the past. And as I indicated, that was approved 800. The second location is, or restaurant, is El Porcelino, and that's at 497 Atlantic Avenue. The hours are 8 to 1 a.m. Sunday through Thursday, 8 to 2 a.m. Friday through Saturday. And this will be an upscale cocktail bar at night and a cafe during the day. There is a back patio area. This is the former Kind of Soul space. It is a 3-story building with units above, and they spoke with nearby residents, though it's not clear if they spoke with the residents upstairs. There's no smoking on the premises allowed. The entire space is ADA accessible, including the rear patio. They received 67 petition signatures of support and 1 full letter of support, so there was 0 protests. And moving on to the third one, it's table 87 Atlantic Avenue. The hours are 11 through 12 a.m. every day. This is an existing establishment that wants to upgrade its liquor license from beer and wine to a full license. They had a renovation a few years back, which included a bar area, and now would like to serve with a full license. They received 20 petition signatures and no complaints. Moving right along, the next one, the fourth one is F&B Associates, and that's located at 63 Flushing Building. And this is, well, the hours are 11 through 12 a.m., Saturday through Sunday, closed Monday through Tuesday, and then it's 5 p.m. through 12 a.m. Wednesday through Friday, and it's for indoor space only. And the location is very deep in the Navy Yard. It's not near any residential area, and it will be a Stranger Thing immersive type of space. It's similar to, let me just go to my notes, the Van Gogh experience, and it will be open just for a few months. And it's just for this year only, and it's sanctioned by Netflix. Moving right along to the fifth one is Boykin Soul Food, and that's at 374 Pearl. Hours are 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. This is the chef kitchen tied to the venue at 345 Adams Street. They are opting Boykin out of it now, and it will then be a chef counter with Martin Korean food, and there is minimum outdoor seating, and they will hire about 8 people there. They've had 6 letters of support provided from adjacent building owners and no complaints. And moving on to the same owners, but a different location, Boykin Soul Food again, but this location 345 Adams. Hours are 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Friday, and 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. Saturday. And this is the former Hill Country barbecue space. They will hire about 40 people there. The 2 spaces are not directly connected and will have its own staff and operations. So moving right along to number 7, Impasto at 373 Waverly. Hours are 12 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. They are operating now and want to add beer and wine. Nothing is changing regarding hours of seating. 17 petitions of signature support, 0 complaints, or that they didn't receive any complaints. And moving right along to 8, Pizzeria Fuccio, that's at 192 Duffield. Hours are 11 to 2 a.m. Friday through Saturday, 11 to 12 a.m. Sunday through Thursdays. Within the name, this will obviously be a pizzeria, a very small establishment. They received about 70 petition signatures of support. And finally, Sweet Bee. And they came before our committee in early 2021, but it seems that they missed some type of state guideline to submit their application. But again, they are still planning to open as a cafe in the morning and will serve food in the afternoon and evening, and they would likely open in May. And there is seating in the backyard and moving. So pretty much there were no issues with the renewals, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Nicole, thank you for the report. Excellent job. As everyone can see, the committee unanimously approved all of the new liquor, wine, beer, and cider applications, as well as any renewals. Are there any questions on the report that was given? Seeing none and hearing none, all in favor of the committee's report, either raise your hand or indicate by saying aye.
Don't we need a motion?
I got excited. Can I get a motion to accept? Can I get a motion to accept the committee's recommendation? So we have, I'm sorry, who moved?
I did.
Mr.
Well,
Footnoy,
no.
second, Ms. Zollinger. Excuse my excitement. Now, is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, would you now raise your hand or indicate by saying aye?
Aye.
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 Those opposed, if you would follow the same protocol. Those abstaining, would you follow the same protocol? Unanimous, thank you. That's why everybody needs a good vice chair. Next committee to report, land use, Mr. Carlton Gordon.
Thank you very much, Chair Lanny. This is a special thing that we're doing. It involves what we call the area mean income protocols. And I first want to, thank our committee and especially the working group, which is, of course, our committee co-chairs are Irene Jana and Daughtry Christophin. Our secretary is Karen Johnson, although at the last meeting we had Brian Howland to do the minutes, and I thank him very much as well. Our committee had voted 11-0 for a change of consideration or a change to how the area mean income is to be implemented. What we have found is that let's say for housing that's being developed, new housing is being developed, normally the area mean income is a guideline that's used by governmental agencies, especially the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development. And I think also the Department of City Planning is a little bit involved in there somewhere. But what they do is that they call for the area mean income was a way to try to get people of modest means and low income into new development. The problem that you have, and I think it's clear for anybody who walks around our district, especially over on Flatbush, on Fulton and thereabouts, is the rising income levels because of the high rises that we have in our community. It's just has soared the area income in this district and especially around here, which makes it more, I would say, difficult for people of modest means either to qualify or to get into housing that's really needed for people of modest means. So we had a working group, again, which is consisting of Daughtry Christophin, Irene Jana, and Bill Flournoy, to try to come up with some solution to try to at least get people of modest means a chance to get into housing, especially in our area. And what we're proposing is that the AMI be reflective of the actual levels of income that's in Kings County. That'll be more affordable for new housing projects that are coming up, so that it'll be approximately, call it 57% of the actual levels that exist. And we want, that's set by HPD and HUD. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my good colleagues, Bill Flournoy and Daughtry Christophin, to give the details of what's being proposed from our committee and the work that is needed. Go ahead, either Daughtry or Bill, and take it from there.
Okay, thank you, Chair Gordon. Thanks everybody for listening to our proposal. I think, Carlton, you hit most of the salient points. First of all, the area median income level is set federally, and it includes a very wide catchment area that goes beyond the 5 boroughs of New York City, and includes some parts of Westchester, Putnam, and Rockland counties, right? So the AMI levels that are used to leverage quote unquote affordable housing in the city are not accurately reflecting the area median income of residents of King County. So we have a supporting document that took a look at what the 2021 area median income levels are according to HPD, and then compared it to the actual income of families in Brooklyn And what we discovered is that Brooklyn families make approximately 57% of what the federal and therefore the city standard of affordable housing actually is. For most people, that means that they would have to pay way more than the 30% target limit of their income on even affordable housing units in our district and in other districts in the borough. And so what we are proposing is that HPD revise the definition of area median income to accurately reflect the Brooklyn as a borough and to transcribe those AMI levels and the resulting affordable housing to reflect those actual levels. Bill, did you have anything to add?
Oh, yes, by all means. The reason why we're suggesting this is because of the effect that's having on the individuals we actually call the essential workers. Because of the high rents, the essential workers are basically being forced out of their neighborhoods, such as local neighborhoods, and actually being forced into what we call transportation deserts. Places that are, when they try to commute in, it takes them an hour, hour and a half just to get to work, okay, as opposed to where they were working normally within their own neighborhoods. And also what we're looking at right now is not only is the affordable housing displacing people, but it's also, the idea was the affordable housing was made for people who are being displaced to be affordable to them, and it's not. What we're looking at right now is also because of these rates, we're seeing a lot of more homeless people because they can't afford to live in any of the apartments in the area. So this is also increasing the number of homeless throughout the District of Kings, our district, and also Kings County. Now, currently right now, people are starting to become proactive, the local government and the governor itself. Governor Hochul is proposing to revamp the 421A program, okay? If we could get some words in, for instance, we need to have a say in this because we are the community board and we deal directly with the community. If we can help with this, that'll be something that we should suggest. Also, currently right now, you have housing experts right now who are currently seeing that there's movement to actually reform affordable housing, and they're already putting in their wish lists, okay, to try to figure out what they would want for affordable housing as opposed to what the community would want. And right now, also, Mayor Adams is putting together a housing leadership team to actually address this problem also. So with all these individuals now moving in this direction, it would be to our benefit to take advantage of this and tell them what we think from the ground level affordable housing should be, and not have them tell us because they've gotten it wrong so far. Okay, so that's basically from the point of view of economic and also as far as individuals in general.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Daughtry. Bear in mind that we estimated one thing that came up in our discussion is just the income levels in the new housing that's being built. And one of the things that we I would say discovered, or we were able to estimate, is that it will take a household income of $200,000 a year just to meet if you wanted to live in some of the new housing that's coming up. In and of itself, you say, well, that doesn't really affect us, but it does, again, affect because of the higher levels. It makes it more difficult with the AMI being considered as part of any new housing that's being developed for lower income people to get into the housing. So what we're asking the committee, excuse me, we're asking all the board members to support these, our efforts and to endorse our recommendations to make these changes to the AMI to get people into housing, especially housing in our area, so to give them a chance at least to have a decent place in a good in a good place to live. And we would move for that. Thank you.
Just two quick other things. Just Carlton, you mentioned Department of City Planning, and yes, they're definitely involved. We all know about mandatory and voluntary inclusionary housing, and that gives us or gives the developer an FAR bonus if they choose to include affordable units. The problem, as everyone has said, is that that definition of affordability is not attainable for many, many people. And so what we're asking people to do is to lower that level of affordability and to make developers comply with that level of affordability if they want to build in the Borough of Kings.
Mr. Gordon, the other reason why we want to set this up as Kings County is hopefully other boroughs will follow this model also, and also try to do something very similar to this so that we have a group of individuals all on the same page doing the same thing. So this is why we set it up as Kings County. Okay, hopefully Queens and all the other boroughs will do the same thing.
So thank you for the presentation. What I'd like to do is just entertain some questions before we take next steps. And so with that, let me start with Emily.
Thank you so much for the report. I think, and it's a comment more than a question. So when we think about part of the challenge, sorry, there's an echo. I don't know where that's coming from. When we think about part of the problem, that you have this tension of like, there's still not enough housing being built. So there's a price of the housing, but there's a hundreds and hundreds of thousands gap between the number of new jobs that are being created and the number of housing units that are being created. So already you have a supply demand issue. You also fundamentally have at a government level, the idea that for New York, we are trying to get more tech jobs. So you have like, and this is not inherently a bad thing, but like Chuck Schumer, it is one of his main like things. He's like getting the tech industry into New York. And so what we hear as like, 200,000, that is what 25-year-olds at Google make. That is what a 30-year-old at Google makes. So you have this tension that exists between already there's not enough housing. You have people that have lived here for a long time and are not necessarily in certain industries. And you have companies like Google, whoever's setting up and paying people a lot of money. Like New York has probably the highest, engineering salary in the country. So just that there are a lot of issues. And so it also feels like there is, for me, part of the help is like there's a government aspect, but then it's also for the government, if you're trying to get more tech jobs here, there is also that how do you balance that with that you are greatly skewing the ecosystem in terms of affordability. So thank you for the report, but just again, my point is just around like, there's so many factors that go into it that there are parts of the government work that are unintentionally working against this basic problem.
Thank you.
For the working group and the committee, thank you.
John, you're on mute.
I'm off mute now. I should remind the community board that this housing issue started in Community District 2 downtown Brooklyn with the rezoning of downtown Brooklyn in 2004. We have never caught up with it. So first of all, I want to make a motion to approve all of the work that this committee has done. I think we have to get started. This sounds like an excellent starting point. My question is, have we invited the principals that we know to be involved in this decision to a community board meeting or to your committee so that you could have an in-depth discussion with them about the specific issues, hoping that you begin with discussion of what happened here in 2004, because the community board needs to understand all of the folks of color and low income that lived in downtown Brooklyn in 2004 were removed by condemnation of these buildings. We don't actually know what happened to those folks. but they're still out there. Some of them, I'm guaranteed, are in this homeless population that we are trying to get our hands around now. So what you're talking about today is an excellent step. I don't know that it actually covers the folk that were removed from downtown Brooklyn with that 2004 upzoning. Thank you. But motion to approve the committee's work.
Barbara?
Thank you. I just had a question. I get the sense you're proposing that the board write a letter, and is that letter going to go to HPD, or is it going to go to others as well?
We've gone to HPD. I also would suggest that it maybe goes to Department of City Planning as well. And I guess would also go probably to the, I guess, the regional office of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. And I guess, and hopefully any other interested or potential, let's say, elected officials or bureaucrats who would need, this should be made aware of. But at least at this point, it's going to go to HPD and I guess the HUD and maybe city planning as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Nicole?
oh, and by the way, we to answer John Dew's question, I did put a request through the board to see if we can get commissioner types to come to address our future committees meetings. So far, I guess it's going to take a while to get a decent answer, but at least we put a request to have them come to us. And yes, we do want to have them join us at a future meeting.
Nicole?
Yes, I mentioned in the chat, but first of all, thank you for this work, that, you know, the AMI definition, we really need to be thinking about the financing of this housing that comes in. Because if somebody who makes 60K, if they're currently about 50% AMI, if the average is 120, you know, if we make AMI 60K, they'll still need a housing subsidy if the housing is very expensive to build. You know, this rent is very high in part, and Emily made a good point that we have a lot of jobs coming in that don't match the housing production in the city. We built more housing in 1940 than we do now. You know, the people with the high salaries are going to get the buildings, they're going to get the rents. So I just want us to be clear that and stay, you know, focused that it's really about who gets a subsidy and how much is needed, because the financing and the expenses of building housing are astronomical in New York, and there's not a lot of supply. So I think in that sense, any opportunity we have to speak to state representatives, people in the city who can create new programs to get financing, easier financing. You know, affordable housing works because they get fast tracked through all these, like, you know, things they have to go through, and therefore the housing can be cheaper. So really, the goal should be making housing cheaper, or at least not cheaper like materially, but more, you know, so it's cheaper to build. So I think, you know, any opportunity we have to stay focused on that, I would love to be in those meetings.
Jessica?
Thank you.
Did you say Hasra or Jessica?
No, I said Jessica.
Oh, thank you so much. I just wanted to clarify what the committee, I appreciated Carlton's response, but is the ask from the committee that the motion be that we write a letter of support? I'm not clear on what that is, and perhaps Daughtry, if you wouldn't mind, Lenny, if you don't mind me asking Daughtry to respond and just clarify what ideally the motion would be. I know I'm jumping ahead a bit.
Yeah, go ahead, Daughtry.
Sure. I think the motion is to allow there's an action report, which Taya had brought up, that we wrote, sort of formalizing our request. So what we're asking is for the board to support this action. Taya, can you scroll down to the request? Thank you. So we request that, right. So I guess we need to add a sentence here that, or I need to clarify that what we're asking is for support to,
I know that's sort of why I struggled too.
No, yeah, you're right. You're right. So I think, and I mean, I'm speaking without having conferred with our committee,
Yeah,
that that what we're trying to do is we're trying to get this issue out to agencies and elected officials. I heard a lot of folks reminding us we can hopefully leverage local, state, and potentially other elected officials for this. So this needs to be translated into a letter, I think. to your point. Would you agree, Bill?
That's the start, that the, at least as a letter, I mean, because that's one way at least to get the attention of the officials and the departments and the bureaucrats to at least say, oh, that community board has something that's developing that they're interested in, and maybe we should look at that. But I agree with you, yes, at least it starts as, I guess, a letter act with a bit of a, I guess, a supporting documentation or whatever. I guess our report will do that to say this is what is needed.
Right, and what we're not showing here, just to be clear, is that we did do an analysis of HUD 2021 incomes. Oh, there it is, great. And then took Brooklyn's incomes from 2019. The years don't quite match up because we couldn't find the 2021 data for Brooklyn from Furman, and then that gave us our calculation of 57%. And then you start to see how it translates down to monthly rents. My particular interest, just to be clear, was that I feel like we have an opportunity on the land use committee to ask people who come to us asking for approvals to push them to deliver more affordable housing. And so I think the way that we could do that not only is by talking to them at committee meetings, but also by having these meetings with people from HPD and DCP and creating awareness about what we're trying to do via a letter and a campaign to share our knowledge.
Great. I think I have a summarized motion language, but I'd like to wait until Lenny, you feel like that's appropriate.
Thank you. Hasra?
Yes. I just want to go across to what John had mentioned, that we need to get all the stakeholders involved in it, whether it's the electeds or people from the mayor's office with housing. There is another group of people that's been affected by these numbers, these new affordable housing that's being built. The Department of Finance is now taxing people who own condos at the rate at which these affordable units are being rented at. So if a 2-bedroom is rented at $6,000 in your neighborhood, your condo is going to be taxed as if it was in that building. So you have retirees who own their condo outright. They have no mortgage. So they're no longer paying a mortgage, but their taxes have gone from $300 a quarter to $1,000 or $1,500 a quarter. So you have another group of people trying to sell their homes because they cannot afford to live in a home that they have finished pay their mortgage on. And it's all connected to this AMI numbers. And I wish that some work was done to merge what finance is doing as well to people, a new group that's emerging that is going to be priced out of their homes because of the taxes. And people who live in condo, because a condo is taxed based on the entire building, which is class 2. The condos are suffering more than the other units. So that's just something that I'm throwing out there. I'm not sure if at this stage anything could be done to add that to the discussion with the electeds or the mayor's office when we get to that stage.
Cyril?
Personally,
Actually, Carlton, let me let Cyril go. Cyril?
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Guy. This is really something that I personally have hoped that we would do for quite a long time. I congratulate you for taking this up. I just want to say, since I'm hearing a lot of conversation, and we don't have actually a specific letter or something to look at to then maybe vote on, as a suggestion, would it be possible to have the principals who brought this up, maybe with a few others of the committee, maybe put together something succinct and then bring it back to us, and then we could vote on that with all the details? I'm not sure, because I hear it brought up a lot of comments from my colleagues here that I wasn't even thinking about, that maybe we can do that in a more formal way instead of just voting on doing a letter. It's just a suggestion.
So Cyril, actually, let me just, before I do that, Douglas, thank you for raising your hand. This conversation is really more for board members, because we're trying to hear that. But given that you've raised your hand, I'd love to open it up to get your feedback. But just giving you the heads up. Go ahead.
All right, Lenny, that's great. Now, I just wanted to actually support one of the comments made by one of the board members, the last speaker, regarding the property taxes. I think I had mentioned that at a previous community board meeting. If you guys, I just wanted to support what she said. And that's the only reason I'm raising my hand. If you guys don't mind, I just wanted to show it to the group just to support exactly what she said. This is
Actually,
University Towers is a huge, middle working class community. So these are the taxes that went up. So I just wanted to show you guys, because she is totally correct in her response. So I just wanted to give that a little bit of backing.
Thank you.
You've experienced it.
Thank you. Monique?
Yes, and I was going to piggyback on my neighbors at University Towers. I'm on the co-op board for Kingsview Homes, and basically we are facing the same issue in the sense that we have to, like our real estate taxes are nearly $2 million. Again, we also have a large senior community, people who are on fixed incomes, and our taxes are based on these new developments that are in our neighborhood. And you have folks that have paid for their apartments. They've been here for decades, and every year we're forced to raise maintenance every month based on the increasing real estate taxes. So just wanted to piggyback on that.
Denise?
Okay, good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. Nice to see all of you. I just want to quickly say that this conversation is music to my ears. And it should be music to everybody's ears, because it is so, so, so critically important. We have to keep this song going in the best interest of a lot of people who have been shut out and continue to be shut out, while we continue in this borough to have developers build and build more buildings and build more buildings, and the numbers go higher and higher. The people who would like an opportunity they continue to get cut out of those opportunities. And I think it's appalling. And I think that it is amazing. And I salute the committee and the board for bringing forth this very nicely laid out and substantive information and charts and graphs. I think I'm very impressed. And so let's keep it moving. Let's get louder with what we have. And I feel certain that something can go in a way that we need it to go, so that it's always a middle place where we can come to for the benefit of those who can afford $5,000 a month in rent, and those who have less income to be able to go into that very place. And as they have lived in the community for many, many years. And so I just want to, I can't tell you, my heart is good. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Let me call on Assemblywoman Joanne Simon. I believe she wanted to comment on this particular topic. And then we'll also hear from Assemblywoman Simon in a minute when we call on the electeds. But I did want to give you the opportunity to, I think you wanted to address this topic as well, Assemblywoman.
Well, thank you, Mr. Singletary, because you read my mind. I didn't actually say that in the chat. But I'm really glad to see Community Board 2 working on this issue. I think that the points that you have raised are really important. Obviously, city property tax is the one tax, for example, that the city really controls and the state doesn't, is property tax. And it is quite a mess. And getting a handle on it is something that they have been looking at for quite some time, and I know are looking at it again. So your report and your guidance is going to be very helpful. One issue that comes up all the time is area median income, which, as you know, is a HUD designation and includes the New York metropolitan region. So it's very high. Brooklyn's median income, which means that 50% or below and 50% or higher, is 62,230. And you can get that on the Furman Center's website. They update that on a regular basis. But it does mean that, building for affordability and build the way New York City has gone by having development done primarily by private developers means that there is a lot of overhead that goes into what they're developing. And I have been maintaining for quite some time, for example, that we need to change the way the amount of financing that's available to not-for-profit housing developers who can build just as competently, if not better, with lower profit margins because they're not-for-profit housing developers, and be able to build more affordable units and more deeply affordable units. And so I would just like to encourage the community board, as you look into this, to look into things like the bonding cap, for example, and how much is available for not-for-profit housing developers.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. We will hear from you again momentarily. One of the things I wanted to add is I thank the members of the board for doing this. I would just ask that before we proceed with the final doc, that we go back to the information that was really uncovered back in 2018 when I asked Lindsay Einhorn and Kate Yearwood Young to convene the efforts that we started this in 2018. And one of the things that I see in the proposal that I recall from that exercise is that if we're going to really be encompassing about how we address AMI, that we need to take one of the proposals that came from that group was that it be looked at by zip code, because quite frankly, different zip codes bring about different revelations about how income are affecting the housing components and the challenges that are associated there. On top of some of the other information that was submitted this evening. And so if we're going to do this, which please don't suggest that I'm objecting to this, let's make it as encompassing and as inclusive and as airtight as possible. And I think it is beneficial to us to compare those notes. And if my memory serves me correctly, I think Bill Flournoy was part of that group as well. And so we can compare some of that information, put those two efforts together, since that was 2018. It does seem like a few years ago now. Maybe we can make it as robust as possible so that we can submit this. And then also, I think one of the other additional recommendations at that time was have this to go before some of our New York representatives from the New York delegation at a federal level, because it is going to require their support as well, as been described through many of the comments that were given this evening. So with that, Jessica, I'm going to turn to you to help us describe what a motion would be on this recommendation, but also noting that this isn't a final document. Yeah. It needs to be more encompassing of some of the work that was already done in 2018.
Yes, so I might amend what I previously started to write. What I was going to suggest is that we make a motion for the board to support the principles outlined in this AMI revision proposal and write a letter elevating it to the appropriate city and federal agencies. Perhaps for now, we remove the write a letter part while we're going to go back and do that comparison, which I totally agree with. Maybe instead it's and elevate, skip the letter writing part while we continue to do this work. What do you think?
Daughtry, actually, Taya, do me a favor, could you take the screen now? I need to see the colleagues. Daughtry.
Yes, sorry. I think that the solution, what I'm proposing that perhaps we have a friendly amendment to the proposal that's on the table that asks, so the action report was supposed to end up in a letter.
Wasn't seconded.
Oh,
yeah, it
so you can state what you suggest.
I thought you had a question.
Sorry, no, I can wait.
No, we want to hear from you. I was just clarifying that there's not a motion on the table.
So Jessica, do me a favor, read that one more time.
So the committee's I should say, Mr. Ju made a motion that was not seconded to support the committee's proposal. What I suggest is that we say the board support the principles outlined in this AMI revision proposal and elevate it to the appropriate city and federal agencies.
Can I get a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, now I have a friendly amendment. Which,
Is there any discussion on the motion? Daughtry?
sorry, I get excited about these things.
It's all right.
That the friendly amendment be that we, one, consider the work done in 2018, specifically referencing zip code analysis, and add that to our report. And secondly, try to include an analysis on the Department of Finance's property tax elevations and what the impact of that is as it relates to affordable housing.
Sounds great. I agree to it.
Let me call on another member, Ms. Richardson, Yvette.
Okay, I don't think my hand is up, but I think everything I've heard tonight is great, and I definitely I support the motion that's being put forward with the friendly amendment.
So I put you on the
Just
spot.
to say,
I
Yvette,
put you on the
hope you're
spot.
feeling better.
I put
Thank
you on
you.
the spot because I saw you had a question in the chat. So
Yeah, I did, because we mentioned some agencies, and I know that I believe that HCC is involved with the bond caps, and HCR from the state level is involved with housing. So I was just wondering if those agencies should be included, but
yes,
I guess at this point it's a little premature. You know, we're talking about the motion. So, but thank you. Thank you.
You know,
Chair.
I want for the discussion portion, your question was pertinent. So that's why I wanted to make sure you got a chance to get that out there. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for calling on me.
Any further discussion on the motion? No.
Oh, yes. One of the reasons I felt we shouldn't include zip codes was the last time we presented this with the zip codes, it confused a lot of people. Okay, because they were focused on different areas as opposed to the entire Kings County. Okay, because for instance, in our district, we just focused on our district. The average median income in our district is much higher than it is in other districts. So people were comparing, they were focusing on the zip code and saying, well, the rents aren't that high for this district. But
you know, you're right. But I think now that you've taken the forethought with the team to look at all of Kings County, I don't know that it's any harm in recognizing that by highlighting the zip codes, you do get a true variation, and it does make a difference because sometimes certain zip codes need to appreciate the benefits of what those lower numbers mean, and that does have a real material impact. So I don't know that where we are today versus where we were in 2018, that the vision wouldn't be more enhanced by having that.
May I add something? Because I was working on demographics in the old effort. Cyrene.
Sure, go ahead, Irene.
Okay. Yeah, I had analyzed our demographics as a community district. And what I found, I mean, it's been a deliberate thing. If you go all the way back to Robert Moses, cutting down all the things around Cadman Plaza to get rid of low-income people. Then you had Metrotech in the 70s and 80s, which took down a lot of housing that was available for less affluent people on all the side streets around Myrtle Avenue. I mean, there has been a conscious effort to push low-income people out of the downtown area, and each census showed progressively lesser and lesser Black population. When I came on the board, the Black population of Community Board 2 was around 40%. It's gone down to about 24 in these 30 years. And it was a deliberate effort to segregate this area. And that's why I'm not too crazy about going into zip codes, because what we're saying is let's pushed all those people out of our area into another part of Brooklyn.
So here, let me just kind of rein this in just a tad bit. This document is not the final document. And all this valuable information is only going to help to enhance and make sure that whatever we decide upon is something that is going to be as robust as possible. The work that we've done thus far, the work that has been done, let me say it that way, the work that's been done thus far, whether it was 18 or current, is all valuable. What I want to get us to the point is approving the concept and the recommendation that's been put before us, and then more work to come. We'll come back to the committee, to the board, and then we'll make a final determination. So I'm not looking for perfect tonight. I'm looking for an approval based on the recommendation. All right, Hezron?
Yeah, you know what Irene just mentioned is something I had been thinking about before she spoke. And I'm wondering whether we could, instead of doing zip code, we could do neighborhoods or community district. Because if you already have the raw data by zip code, it might be easy to merge it into a neighborhood or a community district.
So there's no objections to that. That's the extra additional work that we have to do. My mentioning of the zip code was to highlight what had been done early, what came out of it, and to bring 2018 and 2022 together. So there's no objection to that. That's additional work that will have come out of this.
Yeah, I'm just thinking based on what Irene said, it had been in my mind before that it could produce segregating the neighborhoods. So if you put it by an entire neighborhood district, like say Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, Park, Prospect Heights, it may change the numbers.
No, understood. Yeah, that's helpful.
Okay.
That's helpful. Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor by raising your hand or indicating aye.
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 Anyone opposed, follow the same protocol, please. Any abstentions, would you follow the same protocol? Jessica, but my depiction is unanimous, right?
Yes, 32 in favor.
Great.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Chairperson report. I just have a few items I want to mention. One, and this is not really any of an action, but it's something that we need to be mindful and vigilant of, and definitely we want to make sure that we become aware of this as we represent our various communities. In our district, and particularly along some of the busier corridors like Atlantic Avenue, but not to single out Atlantic Avenue, we've had some pedestrian fatalities due to vehicular incidents. And it is starting to become a little bit more prevalent. I don't want to go to the heights of saying it's out of control, but clearly one loss of life based on a vehicle is too much. And so we definitely have had more than one in a few weeks. And really, if you just think about the start of the year. So what I'd like to just say is that, let's make sure that we do the best we can to engage with elected officials at all levels. Clearly, I've had conversations with the chair of the Transportation Committee that we do our best to keep this top of mind, but it is something that requires our voices. And we need to think about the right way to protect the lives of those who are just simply trying to cross the street to get from one side of the road to the next without having such challenges and mitigating the risk of drivers. So just something I bring to everyone's attention so that hopefully it's top of mind. The other thing I wanted to mention is that in our previous meeting, and it may have been an executive committee, there were conversations about engaging with the Department of Transportation. So I had a meeting last week with the Brooklyn Commissioner, Keith Bray. And in our discussion, I expressed to the commissioner the sentiments that were expressed during the committee meeting and directly from members of the committee. And what I can report back with is Commissioner Bray has agreed to that at a minimum, he and representatives from DOT will be at the transportation committees at least quarterly at a minimum, as opposed to going longer periods and not showing up at all. So there's a direct commitment there, but also that we would have stronger representation and robust engagement for many topics, as an example, but not limited to the BQE. So there will be a lot more engagement with community board as it relates to what's happening at the BQE. And then also to pivot into my last point, for those of us who are at the Open Streets gathering, is the way I'm going to say it, that took place last night, there was information shared that an update would be presented to community board in April about the Open Streets program. And while it clearly has drawn attention, I, for one, I'm not speaking for everyone, I'm just talking as an individual within the community, I don't know that I know any more today than I did going into the meeting. And that's not to suggest that the effort and the intent wasn't there, but the execution and the result just didn't educate me anymore. And so I would imagine that there'll be more conversations to take place around Open Streets and just overall as a program, because the Open Street program exists well beyond just Willoughby Street. It exists in other areas within Brooklyn. And so the fact that we can hopefully have further dialogue around it will hopefully have the program become more inclusive and also do something that's a positive return, as opposed to just something that, for lack of proper communication, has now served as some form of alienation. So hopefully the Transportation Committee and the entire community board will be able to engage in a way that is more positive, and also working closely with our councilwoman, Crystal Hudson, and quite frankly, all the interested party stakeholder groups that have a concern, regardless of whether you sit on either side of the argument. Every concern and every voice is valid to that point. So with that concludes my chairperson's report. At this time, I want to move to the next item on the agenda, which is the elected officials and dignitaries. I would ask that if you are representing an elected official and you do want to speak, if you would just indicate your name in the chat so that my colleague Taya Muller will know who's here. And with that, I'm going to start with, again, Assemblywoman Joanne Simon.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Lenny. And thank you to everyone who's here tonight. I'm happy to speak with you. As you can tell from the background here, I'm still in Albany. I'm in my office. And we're still conferencing the budget. And we will be passing what we call the one house resolution. What happens is, of course, the governor puts out a budget proposal and both houses respond to it. The assembly will be putting that out on Friday, unless something goes wrong, but should be out on Friday, and we would then be voting on it next week. That would be the assembly's budget priorities for this year. And then, of course, that's when the three houses get together, the executive and two houses of the legislature get together and negotiate that final budget. So there are a couple things that I think are important this year with regard to the budget, and that is that I think we will be providing some additional money for housing relief, for example. Those pots of money that we had appropriated for things like keeping, the eviction moratorium, but there's also the program, the ERAP program, that would provide rental assistance to people who were in arrears. We're going to be putting in additional money into programs like that, and also to help homeowners who, for example, might be have been unable to pay their utilities or their mortgages. There's a program for homeowners as well. And so we're going to be funding those kinds of things. We are doing some great things, I think, in higher education and education, which we'll be talking more about as we go forward. And I'm very pleased with a lot of what's in the budget, including at least in the one house budget, including really significant money to help those home care workers who have been underpaid for decades and who are currently leaving the field like crazy because they could make more money at McDonald's than they can taking care of people. So this is a very big issue in our state, as well as in the city. And we're going to be providing, I think, a lot of support for payment to pay for those home care workers, for example. So that's just a couple of things that we're going to be doing in this budget. I'm a little, I have too many things in my head at the moment, so I probably don't have that budget all sorted out, but we've been conferencing the budget now for the last 4 or 5 nights, and we're not quite finished yet, and then we'll be continuing the conversation as we go along. In addition, I just wanted to let you know I passed 2 gun violence prevention bills, which I debated this week, and they both passed with good, healthy margins. And they were chapter amendments, which are something that got a little tweaked from the bill that was passed last year, but they were debated anyway. And of course, one of the big issues that keeps coming up is whether or not we should be focusing on the criminals as opposed to the guns, when the Firearm Violence Research Institute actually doesn't focus on the guns at all, and it doesn't focus on the criminals at all. It focuses on what are those social determinants of gun violence? What are the antecedents to gun violence? What are the policies and practices that would help us reduce the public health crisis that is gun violence in our society? So I'm very pleased that I was able to carry that bill and have it funded, and now everything is in gear to go. And I know that's a topic that is important to a lot of people in Brooklyn as well. And so I just wanted to report on that. And I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that you have. Well, that was great.
Assemblywoman, thank you so much. I just wanted to let you know that Allison, who is on the line, always does a great job of representing you. Well, we love having you in person.
Well, thank you. Allison does a great job. I'm very happy to hear that you're happy with Allison. And I wanted to stop in while I could. I'll probably be going back down to conference. So thank you for welcoming me this evening. And please have a productive rest of your meeting. And I'm sorry, Lincoln, I'll miss your presentation, but I kind of have to run.
Thank you,
Okay.
Assemblywoman.
Thank you so much. Good
Take
night.
care. All right. Next up, we're going to call on Councilmember Lincoln Restler.
Well, Joanne is always a tough act to follow, so but we're very lucky to have her as our assembly member in the 52nd. Thank you for all the work you're doing in Albany, and hopefully we'll have a successful budget later this month. It's great to be with CB2. I firstly just want to commend Daughtry and all of the members of CB2 who worked hard on the AMI recommendations. You know, it's a priority of mine that we it's a priority of mine that we we have CB6 going at the same time in the background. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to admit that, but it's hard. You guys schedule them the same nights. It's a very challenging reality for all of us who share CB2 and CB6. But it's a priority of mine that we eliminate the higher end AMIs. To me, it's egregious that we give tax breaks out to developers who are building at 130% area median income and counting that as affordable housing. A person a single adult in New York City making $108,000 a year is not who we should be prioritizing our limited affordable housing resources for. So we are working on legislation to reduce the options for HPD, to cut off the higher end AMIs so that the affordable housing we're building is truly affordable. And I think that shifting the approach of thinking about it Kings County wide AMI is a very smart alternative and something that I'd be eager to support. Just a couple things that I was hoping to highlight tonight. One is that Borough President Reynoso and I held a press conference last week pushing new policy to try to minimize new parking construction in rezonings in transit rich areas. In the 33rd Council District, I think we've got 24 train stations. And I've got a proposal coming across my desk right now in Williamsburg, right on top of the L train on Bedford and North 7th, where a 28-unit building is supposed to have 14 parking spots. And it just doesn't make any sense that we should be having developers spend exorbitant sums of money on below grade parking or ground floor parking when we should have retail, when instead they should be building affordable housing. And so we're sending a strong message to the Department of City Planning and to developers to file for a special permit that would eliminate or minimize the parking requirements that are associated with their new construction. And we've been getting a really positive response. We got 9 council members in Brooklyn, including Councilmember Hudson, who we share CB2 with, and all of our neighbors to sign on. A majority of the Brooklyn council members signed on in support. So we're hoping to see a real shift on that. And I also wanted to just let everyone know that we're doing a community assembly and inauguration event to kind of celebrate the work ahead. And this is going to be on April 3rd from 2 to 5 over at St. Francis. And the focus of this event is going to be about breakout sessions where we hear from community members from each of you about your priorities for the 33rd. So from transportation to housing to environmental and climate issues, there are going to be breakout rooms with great facilitators where we really hear about your priorities for our office and also what we can do together as a community to affect change. And so I really hope that you'll be able to join. We're also going to have some of the best food from different spots across the 33rd, so you won't want to miss that. Again, that's April 3rd, 2 to 5. And I just want to shout out Arvind, who's on here as our point person for CB2. He's terrific. If you haven't gotten a chance to get to know Arvind yet, please do. And you know, of course, if I can be helpful in any way, we're hustling around the district every day, all day, supporting new small businesses, helping address transit issues. We were thrilled. I'll just do one last one, that we got DOT to approve a new stop sign stop light in front of the Dock Street Middle School over on Front. It has been very dangerous for the students to cross the street over there from their bus stop to the school with no stoplight, no stop sign, no crosswalk even. And we were able to, after years of advocacy, get DOT to commit to affect that change. So, you know, we're working to make every street safe. And that's really our goal. And I just, you know, thank CB2 as always for the great work that you're doing and appreciate the partnership.
Thank you, Councilmember Restler. Do you have time for 3 questions?
I would be honored, Chair Singletary, and I apologize for not saying something nice about you. It goes without saying that you're my favorite community board chair.
It's all right. You're still my guy. Don't worry about it. Let's start with John Dew.
Mr. Restler.
Good to see you, Mr. Dew. How are you?
Let me make it easy for you.
Please.
2 comes before 6 when you're counting. So
they called on me first. That was the problem. That was, you know, but
in your submission about the elimination of required parking for residences that are close to public transportation, we have this ongoing issue in the city, but specifically in Community Board 2. We had gotten an agreement in 2004 that all of the subways would be made ADA compliant. Here we are in 22, not one subway station since then has been made ADA compliant. They are legally required to do this. There is no movement on this at all in Community District 2. There is this movement against cars. There is nothing that speaks to improvement of public transportation. The people have to get around. And we have to accommodate that. We're going to be dealing with another issue related to this later on tonight. However, what can we do to get the MTA to pay more attention to making every station ADA compliant?
Mr. Dew, you're absolutely right. The MTA's current plans of kind of every 3rd station being made ADA compliant are a joke, in my opinion. And I understand we live in a world of limited resources and these projects are very expensive, but ADA compliance is not a choice or an option or a nice to have. This is something that is absolutely essential. And you're right, if we're trying to disincentivize car use, and personal vehicle use because our, climate change requires it, then we need to be investing in mass transit. It needs to be reliable and accessible and affordable. And we need biking options that are safe as well. And so those are critical priority investments for me. Joanne and I know that this is a major priority of CB2. Chair Singletary has been consistent, and as of you, John, in saying that among the top priorities of the board are addressing the situation at York Street, and I see Suzanne nodding along to that. We met with the MTA recently on this. We're supposed to be getting another briefing soon with more concrete information, but addressing the situation at York Street, making each and every one of our stations, having a plan to get them ADA accessible is what we need to be pushing for. We realize it's not going to happen overnight, that there's a lot of resources that need to be allocated, but the federal government has stepped up in a massive way for the MTA, and we need the MTA to invest in our communities. And so it's a priority of mine. We're going to keep pushing. I wish that I could say that, and I'll just say, we'll do this together, city, state, and federal electeds. I know that Congresswoman Velasquez, I know Assemblymember Simon, I know whoever the new state senator is going to be in the Brownstone portion of the Brooklyn Heights side of the district, that we will all push together hard and hold the MTA accountable on this to get traction. And you have my absolute commitment on that.
Thank you, Lincoln. Any other questions from board members? Thank you, council member. Have a good evening. And
Great to see you. Thanks for having me.
If you'd like to. Next up, we have, just looking all over the screen. Wait, what do I have? Andrew from Councilmember Hudson's office.
Thank you, Chair Singletary. So I'll be brief. So as many of you know, and as the chair alluded to, we had a community meeting yesterday with the DOT Commissioner, Commissioner Rodriguez, primarily to address the closure of Willoughby Avenue open street last month, and for constituents to hear about that open street and what happened. So I know a lot of folks here today were there. And so, as many know, in the coming weeks, the Department of Transportation is going to open a weeks-long survey for community members to formally voice their thoughts and gather feedback on the open street. This is part of the process to essentially, hear how folks feel about it, any changes they may want to see for the DOT to evaluate. And so our office, we're going to work in lockstep with the DOT to ensure that that survey is shared far and wide. Anyone who came to the event last night, they'll get it. We'll make sure, CB2 has it. They can distribute it to everyone. Just plainly, we're going to make sure that as many folks as possible that live in the area can fill out the survey and share their opinions. The other piece of this is we're going to be working on we're currently working on a bill that's currently in the drafting stage that is going to require notification to the council member, community board, et cetera, of any permanent changes to open streets. So that, right, like I said, that's in the drafting stage right now. But once we have more information on that, we'll be sure to share that with y'all. But the goal here is to make sure what happened at Willoughby will never happen again. And so we want to make sure that, the DOT is in lockstep with all local electeds and community board members to make sure we know what happens. So that's one. And then two sort of more fun things. So our office is asking community members to fill out a survey to identify high traffic commercial corridors that need trash cans. We allocated funding for a bunch last year through the previous council member, and we want to make sure that we have a bunch of trash cans available. We want to make sure they can go where they need to go. So I will put a link in the chat that you can visit, fill out the survey. I think we're collecting responses until this Friday. So feel free to share this with whomever and let us know where you want trash cans. And then lastly, in a couple of weeks, our office will be hosting, in coordination with CB2 and the Parks Department, an info session on dog runs. We have received so many questions about how do I get a dog run in my neighborhood? Does this park work for a dog run, et cetera? And so, thankfully, we all mobilized pretty quickly. And we're going to have a session where folks can learn what's required of a dog run, how to get it in your neighborhood, what a friends group is, you name it. Parks will be there to address that. And so that's going to be March 22nd at 7 p.m. Once we have the details and everything finalized, we're going to be sure to send that to everyone so that they have the sign-in details, but that's something to look forward to as well.
So Andrew, thank you for the update. And just as a reminder, I'm sure you noticed, but it would be, I just remind you to make sure that when you communicate throughout the district for anything that requires feedback, keep in mind that everyone in our district may not have access to email. And so however creative you in the office are at getting that information out would be greatly appreciated for those who don't have email.
100%. We're planning on canvassing, putting flies under doors, all that stuff. So I definitely take that.
Okay, so we'll see if you can stick around for 3 questions from board members, and I'll start with John Dew.
So, and thank you for bringing up that meeting yesterday. That was, and I've been on this community board for over 2 decades. That was one of the most uncomfortable meetings I have ever attended in Community District 2. For years, we worked with DOT to install what is the most comprehensive network of bike lanes. We had done this for decades. DOT was very familiar with the policy because they made mistakes initially, and they understood if you come to the community board, you understand the concerns of the affected community before you implement something. I wake up one day, I go outside and the street is blocked off. I'm on the community board for 20 years. I know nothing about this. My neighbors are asking me what's going on with this. I have no idea. I don't understand how DOT, after having this much experience in Community District 2, could think that they could implement a program with this degree of magnitude and impact on an affected community overnight and tell no one, not even the community board, about its implementation. I don't understand how that could happen. So I understand a law, huh? How does a department think it's okay to go in and change how a community operates? There was no discussion of ADA, which we know is a federal law. How do you block off streets and tell people that they can't get their accessoride coming to their door anymore? I don't understand how this could be rolled out without the appropriate oversight. So I guess the law is the next thing that you think you have to do. But that to me does not get to the issue of how a community could be upset overnight and not be notified.
Yes, I totally take those points. I think part of the discussion last night was to discuss exactly this and to raise that to DOT directly through the commissioner and the borough commissioner, Keith Bray. The bill I'm referring to is more about just ensuring all parties know of any changes moving forward. Crystal wasn't in office until January of this year. So we only have power in what we can do moving forward. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that folks have a voice at the table moving forward, that we do our best to expand any outreach efforts moving forward. But your points on accessibility, we've heard them from a lot of folks. Those are taken. And that's also why the DOT is issuing this survey. This is sort of a post implementation survey to see what worked, what didn't work. And so we're going to find out through that survey whether any changes need to be made or if they don't. But the idea is this survey will be the next step in terms of the Open Streets program, specifically along Willoughby.
Emily?
Hi, this might be a controversial point of view, but how do you, if you're someone who is, I love a dog as much as the next person, but how do you, if you want the parks to reduce the amount of dogs? So I look at something like Fort Greene Park where I live, and I get that the off-leash hours are basically between 9 and 9, but if you're like a normal human that has to get to work by, let's call it 9 or 10, if you're someone that wants to just enjoy the park in the morning, go for a run, that entire park is basically a dog run, and the few places that are supposed to be off limits, the dog owners don't care. So what is the, yay for the dog runs, but what is the proper method to also basically control the freedom of dogs in parts of Brooklyn?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, well, one, I'll say at the forefront, I'm going to put my email in the chat. So let's talk about this a little more offline. But I think in terms of the point of dog runs is to provide a confined area for dogs to have recreation. When parks, so Fort Greene Park, because it's landmarked, cannot have a dog run. So it will have those off-leash hours. I think we can figure out if there's a way to either reduce it, change it. That's a separate discussion. However, any park that does have a dog run, any off-leash hours are basically taken away. So in terms of dog owners' preference, some folks prefer to have those off-leash hours than dog run. So I think essentially to your question, yeah, I think we have to sort of talk more and think more about what that can look like. But I think the best answer I have for you right now is I would say if we can find ways to have more enclosed spaces for dogs in the neighborhood, maybe that will help with part of this problem. But this is clearly something that we also want to address more at length. So I'll put my email in the chat and we can talk offline a little bit more about this.
Thank you.
Daughtry?
I have a question regarding the district trash can location selection and maybe some questions about how it works. In my neighborhood, many of the corner trash cans have been removed, and people are trying to understand if a sponsor is required to sort of manage those trash cans and to take the bags out when they're overflowing or what. So I'm curious if you can shed some light on how that process works and how you interact with Department of Sanitation.
Yeah, great question. So I'm not sure about those exact circumstances. What I can say about what we're doing is essentially we have, I think it's about 50 trash cans, and we can decide where they go in the district. And so the idea is typically DSNY likes to put these in high traffic corridors. So typically they're commercial corridors or just highly frequented residential areas. So, you know, if you live on a very quiet street, they're probably not going to go there. But if you live like on DeKalb and like Vanderbilt, that's probably a good spot for something like this. So in terms of picking spaces, I would say, and I think I saw in the chat, I think Shaquana mentioned like near the BQE. So like those are the types of spaces that the DSNY would say these are great spaces for curbside trash cans. In terms of the reason why the ones that you mentioned were removed, it could be that, you know, the trash can, something happened to the trash can, and so the DSNY took it away, didn't replace it yet. Myriad things could have happened. I don't know. If you want to send me the specific locations, I can have DSNY look into it. And in addition, if you want to put those locations as well in that in the form, feel free to. But in terms of what we're doing, it's likely to be any sort of high traffic commercial corridors are the best suited for this.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate this.
Anytime.
Your feedback. We look forward to, I guess, whenever the schedule allows for the councilwoman for her to participate in person as well. So thank you for representing her.
Thanks.
Next up, we have a representative from Senator Kavanagh's office.
Hi.
Hi, Kate. How are you?
I'm good. I know everyone here is very used to seeing Greer, who unfortunately is now with the Comptroller's office. So my name is Kate. I'm Senator Kavanagh's Deputy Chief of Staff. We will have a new liaison for Brooklyn very soon, who will hopefully be here for the next community board. But in the meantime, I will put my contact information in the chat so everybody has it. And you are still in very good hands. A few updates on our end. We're really in the middle of our budget season, so that's what Senator Kavanagh has been very focused on, primarily getting money for housing and NYCHA. So we're working hard on that. And really exciting news today. The All Electric Buildings Act bill that Senator Kavanagh has been working on with Assemblymember Gallagher passed through committee. So we're really, really hoping to pass that one. It's a big priority for us this session. And then kind of lastly, just on a quick update, we're still really encouraging people to apply for ERAP. We also extended foreclosure protections since homeowners don't have the same protections as renters, but you are still protected from eviction if you have applied for ERAP, regardless of whether or not you have been given the funding. So we just want to remind people of that safety that's still there.
Okay, is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you. I guess following the same format, do any board members have any questions for Kate? George, I see your hand up. You have a question? Oh, okay. Kate, thank you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. I'll put my information in the chat.
Okay. I do want to call on the district leader for the 57th Assembly, Shaquana Boykin. Shaquana, do you want to make a presentation or just say hello?
Hi, everyone. No, I do not have a presentation, but if you have not seen me in the neighborhood, sorry. I usually bike around, but on days like this, you'll see me walking. Shaquana Boykin, she, her. I'm a current New York City Housing Authority resident in Walt Whitman. I also live across the street from Fort Greene Park and sit on the board at the chair of programming and outreach. And I have been working on a lot of issues that you all are talking about. So I'm just really excited that I can be here, see your faces, and get to know you all. Thank you. And I'll leave my information in the chat.
Thank you for joining. Look forward to seeing you more. Representing the District Attorney's Office, J.Watkins.
Good evening, everyone, and Chairman Singletary. First of all, DA Gonzalez sends his well wishes to everyone. Today was a very busy day for the DA, myself, and many on his team. We were in Red Hook today doing a food distribution. And the discussion you all were having earlier about housing issues is very timely. That's a very distressed community right on the perimeter of CB2. And they really are in dire straits. So there was a good turnout. Many people came out, a very diverse community of African Americans, Latinos, and Asians who were able to get the food resources that the DA's office and our community partners were able to provide. So the DA is always out in the community doing things even beyond the scope of the office to basically assure that people are just trying to do well and be well in our neighborhoods in Brooklyn. And last month was a busy month. Month of February, we had Black History Month. And in the DA's headquarters, we had a wonderful gallery of portraits of prominent African Americans that were displayed for a few weeks. And so we really like to highlight some of our achievers. One of them was the former Judge Constance Bailey Motley, I believe her last name is, and who definitely is someone who basically should have been many years ago, probably nominated to be one of the first African-American female and African-American justices on the Supreme Court, but she paved the way for others that have followed. We also celebrated in February Chinese Lunar New Year, Year of the Tiger, and celebrated our Asian communities, in that effort as well with a number of events. I always encourage people to go to our website, brooklyndA.org. I spend time on it every day, and it's very important that the community visit that site and to go to it and click on the news tab. I was on it the other day and I found an item that the DA's office prosecuted in January, and it was the conviction of a man who actually, his name was Gary Correa, who was then 24 years old in 2017, who fatally stabbed a Greenpoint resident who was a young man who was an actor and a film producer whose name was George Carroll. Well, Mr. Correa has been sentenced to 20 years in prison for that action. He is now about 29 years old. And so these things that occur that we read about in the newspapers, that we hear on TV, each and every day, they take oftentimes, many years. So this incident has been 4.5 years, but finally justice has come down. And so please go to our website. There are many, many other of our prosecutions that have been made public in our news press releases and so forth. And it's really important that people in our community know about the work that the DA is doing. Oftentimes it just doesn't get you won't read about these things, after many years. So, but it is on our website, and I encourage you to do that. The last thing is we have our high school internship program that will be beginning in the spring, and you can go to our website, brooklyndA.org, to get more details on that. The deadline will be coming up in a few weeks. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Watkins. Any questions from Mr. Watkins from board members? Okay, great. I do not see any other elected officials or representatives of those elected officials. Am I correct? Okay, great.
Mr. Chair, no, Tony Herbert, representing the Office of the Mayor. I'm this new Brooklyn North Community Affairs Director.
Hey, Tony, thanks for joining. We're going to call you under the city agencies.
Okay, all right,
Unless
cool.
you have a conflict. You have a conflict, another meeting you need to run to?
Nah, I can hang around for two.
All right, hold on for me. Good to
All
see
right.
you though. I didn't know you had that job. Congratulations, but good to see
Thank
you.
you,
Hold
thank
on
you.
for me.
All right.
All right. So let's move on to agenda item number 8, committees to report.
Am I an agency or an elected official? This is Carolyn.
We got to make time for the traitor. Anyway, let's welcome what used to be our very own Carolyn Church, who's representing the Brooklyn Borough President, Antonio Reynoso. So hi, Carolyn.
Hello, it's good to be back, to see lots of familiar faces. Tonight, I'm just here to introduce myself in my new role. You know, the borough president, in hiring me to head up the community boards department at Borough Hall, has simply reaffirmed his commitment to the value of community boards. And with that, we're going to be offering lots of trainings for members. We've heard from all the boards that people want training in parliamentary procedure, ULIP training, meeting management. And so for the board members, we're going to be bringing that soon. Right now, we're very much focused on the reappointment process. So we're hoping to get that done not quite on time, which is March 31st, but you know, we're just coming in, but we're hoping to get that done as soon as possible. I just want to say, apart from community boards, one of the borough president's passions is to reduce the rate of maternal mortality in Brooklyn. And I know this is music to the ears of some of our members, particularly the HES committee. So you guys will be probably hearing a lot about that in the future, but I just wanted to really bring that good news to you because I know that the committee has spent a lot of time in the last 3 years or so working on that. And I don't want to take up too much time, but I just want to say to everyone that there's currently an exhibit on at Borough Hall called Brooklyn in Africa. The pieces are part of the collection of an individual who lives here in Brooklyn that has the largest private collection of Egyptian artifacts, or sorry, African artifacts in the world. So please, I'm going to drop the link in, click on it. You have to reserve a time to come. It's open weekdays from 10 to 4, 1 to 2. You don't need to RSVP, but the other times you do need to do that. So it's good to see all these wonderful faces again. Still here working with you. I haven't gone too far. Thank you.
Good to see you, Carolyn. You're probably the only person that we get excited to see who's you know, not part of CB2, but we're glad to have you. We look forward to you being the person to represent the Brooklyn Borough President. And so welcome, all the best in your new role, and we miss you. All right, so let me move on to agenda item number 8, committees to report. Let me start with economic development and employment.
Okay, thank you, Chair Singletary. I'd like to recognize my chair, my co-chair, Denise Peterson, and also my secretary, Catherine Gilman. Okay, we had a meeting on March 1st. That was the Business Improvement District Roundtable. It was the second year we had this roundtable, so we had an opportunity to see the changes that have occurred year over year, especially with COVID. At the presentation, we had the bids presenting Downtown Brooklyn Partnership, Dumbo Improvement District, the Fulton Area Business Alliance, North Flatbush Avenue, Atlantic Avenue, Myrtle Avenue. Montague Street, unfortunately, wasn't able to present, but basically we had an idea of what was going on in the district from those different bids. They gave us an update on their operations, the reopenings that are occurring throughout the district, the new retail spaces that have been opening up. There have been openings and also reopenings, which is a good sign. They also discussed the open restaurants situation. They discussed the events that have been occurring. They also mentioned the pedestrian traffic. It's actually still down, but it's actually starting to move up a little bit. The one part that was a problem was commercial space, and you're not seeing a lot of individuals coming back to work. So because of that, a lot of the businesses in that area were still suffering because office workers were not coming back to work yet. They were still working remote. We also just looked at employment trends. We're starting to see, believe it or not, what we're seeing right now is there's a strong growth right now in the technology arena throughout the district. It's actually the strongest growth of employment in this district right now, which is quite interesting. And also they discussed public safety. They're also discussing planning and advocacy. So once they did through the discussions and gave us some updates on everything, we then asked them what we could do for them to help them going forward with the next district statement of needs. And what we discovered was the biggest issues they're having right now is construction. They're seeing a lot of street closures. They're also seeing a lot of noise and traffic and a problem with parking, okay, especially with a lot of the delivery services. That's a big problem for them. It's actually impeding traffic. Of course, the F train, the York Street station, that was a big issue. They brought that up. There's also an increased number of homeless throughout the district, and all the bids have mentioned that this is a problem. The reason it's a problem is because there's aggressive panhandling of customers, especially individuals who are at the open streets and the restaurants. Okay, it's very concerning. There's a lot of visible mental issues they mentioned also. A lot of individuals who need social care are not getting it on the streets, and that's causing a problem. And they're also mentioning a lot of substance abuse is occurring. They've mentioned also a revolving court system, revolving door court system. What they're stating is that they'll have individuals come into their stores, cause a problem, are arrested, and then return back in a couple of days and cause problems again, in some cases going after certain individuals within their establishment. And that's a big problem. And it's affecting them. As a matter of fact, some of the restaurants and storefronts are actually thinking of hiring private guards to protect their places of work. So they also mentioned that the NYPD has a slow response to when they actually need help, and that's a big problem. They also are saying there's a lack of foot patrols, okay, that they need also to help resolve these issues. The other thing they're looking at is when inspectors come to inspect the different restaurants and buildings, they tend not to give warnings. They tend to actually start writing fines almost immediately instead of warning them about what's going on. And that's a problem. Flatbush and Pacific, the traffic, there's a challenge there with the traffic in that area. I think the Transportation Committee might would take a look at that going forward. There's also sanitation issues. We've heard individuals already discussing it in this meeting about garbage cans being missing and other issues, and also slow pickups. That's another thing that they were discussing. It's getting better, but they mentioned that is a problem. The other thing they're looking at, which is interesting, is community gardens. Because of the sanitation issues, the community gardens are now having rat problems, okay, because of this. So that was a big problem. And the other thing they're just discussing right now is business owners have gone through 2 years of this shutdown, slowdown, whatever you want to call it, with the pandemic. And a lot of them are at their wits' end. They're suffering burnout. And at this point in time, they don't know how much longer these individuals can hang on. So this is something they're concerned about. And this is something else that's interesting. In the sheds for outdoor restaurants, what they're having a problem is after the restaurants close, people are hanging out in the sheds, okay, using the sheds for other purposes. And they have called 311 and haven't got a response back on that either. Okay, so these are the issues. I would strongly suggest that all the different committees look at this, okay, the video that's going to be on YouTube, because the district statement of needs, these individuals have basically laid out what they need from us, what the problems are and what they need. So I just would suggest that all the committees actually look at this report, actual video. And that's my report, Chairman Singletary.
Thanks, Bill. Next committee to report, Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Chair Singletary, Barbara Zoller-Gringer, and my co-chair, Andrew Lastawecki, is here as well. I just wanted to echo Bill had a terrific meeting. I hope those of you were able to go or see it online. Just a reminder that tomorrow is the 200th anniversary of the birth of Harriet Tubman. The next Parks Committee meeting will be on March 21st, where we are going to have our annual, what is now our annual roundtable of Parks Friends groups. Last year, it was very interesting and informative, and to hear about the concerns and problems of and what's going on in a good way in the various parks and playgrounds in our neighborhood. Our last meeting took place on February 14th. We had the executive director of Trees New York, Nelson Villarrubia. This is a wonderful organization, a nonprofit, which was founded in 1976 by a group of activists in reaction to the lack of funding that the parks had for the care of street trees and park trees. I don't know if Richard Morrow is still on the line. He's one of their experts, tree stewards. He frequently comes to our meeting and shares the information with us. And they have a citizen pruner course for those who are interested. And that's really their signature program, teaching people how to care for trees. One of the things we learned was it's very important that you stay away from the immediate area surrounding the trees, that their roots are there and they need to avoid trampling on them. They also have tree stewardships, working with volunteers to take care of tree beds. They're very much involved in enlarging those tree beds so that the trees have better opportunities. They work with schools in a tree stewardship program. Their newest program is a young urban forester internship, a summer program for high school students becoming seniors. And they have a license agreement with the city, so they can prune younger trees. They can't stand on ladders. They have to do all of their pruning from the street level. And they work with compacted soil in the tree pits and leveling out the soil in neglected tree pits, which are necessary actions for maintenance. So it's a wonderful organization, and they're always looking for more volunteers. We also had a continuation of our discussion about parks committees in other community boards. Again, looking to make recommendations to the board at some point as to how we might reconfigure some of the committees that we have. We looked at community boards in all 5 boroughs. I'd like you to know that we have thanks to Taya and others, we have a really great website compared to some of the community boards, which presented a challenge in doing this program. A number of community boards have a Parks, Recreation, Cultural Affairs component. There is an organization focusing on cultural affairs that works with the Parks Department. So that's one thing we might be looking at, talking about going forward. And we're hoping to put together some sort of document with this information in order to make some recommendations. And finally, Carol Ann, always great to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Next committee to report, Transportation and Public Safety. All right, moving right along. Next committee to report, Youth Education and Cultural Affairs.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Singletary. My co-chair, Dorothea Thompson Manning, will give our report from last month. Are you there? Is she here?
I had to get off mute because, when you're on it, you sort of forget about it. Good evening,
Thank you,
everyone.
Dorothea.
Okay. Hold on. Well, we had 3 presentations that night. The first one was from the Brooklyn Academy of Music. For some reason, I'm having problems with, okay, it's good now. I think it's good. Okay. The first one was from the Brooklyn Academy of Music, Ellen Lazinski. She's the Director of Institutional Advocacy. And she shared about the senior programs. They're going to have brunches, cinema, social events. Okay, a book club, and they're trying to reach out to veterans and seniors with Alzheimer's and dementia. And they asked if the community board was able to target those people for them so that they could bring them on board to share in the senior programs. She also talked about the BAM's education program, and they were able to very successfully use Zoom to transfer their programs, using remote programming. It's going to the Arts and Justice and the Brooklyn Interns for Arts and Culture. And the other thing is they're going to have new movie theaters, at least 3. She was not sure exactly where they're going to place them, but they're in the process now of creating at least 3 different theaters. So it's not going to be exactly in BAM itself. It'll be somewhere in the surrounding areas. The other presentation was Gabrielle Sheridan and Shamita Bahir from St. Nick's Alliance. And they shared their opportunities for young teens and early 20s on construction and IT programs. What they do is they also, in addition to the training, they have weekly stipends, they have paid internships, and they try to prepare these students for work. The ages, I believe, range from 16 through 24. The internships last for about 3 to 4 months. Our last presentation was by Janelle Bartley, Director of Operations at Stoked, STOKED Mentoring. She said their mission is to bridge the inequality gap and introduce low-income youth, specifically girls, to action sports. She did a lot of talking about taking young people and showing them how they do surfing, snowboarding, skating. I asked her where were they doing the snowboarding, because I was kind of curious myself. That was like in upstate New York. So they're really trying to integrate learning and sports, as I guess, as a way of building teams, showing young people how to get together and use those skills to also embrace other skills. And that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothea.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. Can I mention, Lenny, I just want to mention our next meeting is March 23rd, and we're going to have the Citizens Committee discussing district early education gaps. We generally talk about education with, K to 12 and so on, but the gaps in our district are for the very young children.
Mhm.
So we'll be meeting with them in the future. We'll meet with district staff, and hopefully some of that information will flow into the statement of district needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Thank you, Dorothea, for that joint.
Lenny, it's John Quint. Do you want me to make the Transportation Committee report quickly in Sid's absence?
Yes, please.
Thanks. This is John Quint. I'm the secretary of the committee. Sid Meyer is our chair. We don't have a vice chair at the moment. Our meeting last month, we had at the end of the meeting, we had another discussion about open streets, which you've already heard, and the Willoughby Avenue open streets issue. Not going to repeat any of the discussion that went on. The major presentation, which was planned in advance, was from the NYPD. Deputy Inspector Rayner from the 84th was unable to attend, though he was scheduled to be there. And in his place, we had Captain Maffei, who's the deputy commander. And we had I forget its title. Let me just look at the minutes. Wilson, I forget his, James Wilson, Captain James Wilson from the 88th was there. Captain Wilson had a PowerPoint showing all of the issues that were going on in both commands. And there was a lot of discussion about a lot of issues. I refer you all to the minutes because he went through, we talked about subway crime, we talked about homelessness, we talked about placard parking, all the issues that you can imagine that came up. And it was good to have both precincts represented. And it was good to have this relationship because we want to have them back more. We have not had, even though we are the Transportation and Public Safety Committee, we have spent more of our time on transportation, but we were very happy to have a meeting almost exclusively in terms of presentations devoted to public safety. Our next meeting's a week from tomorrow, St. Patrick's Day, the 17th. Please join it. Thanks, Lenny.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you giving an update for the committee. Next committee to present, Finance and Personnel.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Hi, everybody. My name is Leonard Jordan. I'm the chair of the Finance and Personnel Committee. And we met on Thursday, February 24th. We actually reviewed fiscal year 2020 reconciliation, which we do regularly when we meet, and we allocated expenditures which will end by June 30th of 2022. And that's the end of our budget year. Some things that we needed for the office and staff, and then in coordination with Taya, also we decided what the expenditures would be. We also put together a budget for 2023, for fiscal year 2023. However, at that time, we had not received our budget from OMB, the Office of Management and Budget. I don't believe we have received it as of yet, at least not to my knowledge. So when we do receive that, we will make sure also that that coordinates with what we had budgeted. And then we will present that to the full board. I would think either at April or May's general meeting for your approval. And I will go through line by line and explain all the expenditures to everyone. In addition, we had completed our interviews for the district manager. This was done in February, matter of fact. We had 12 candidates. We conducted 12 resumes, and we conducted 7 interviews all on the same day. We came up with 3 finalists. Those 3 finalists will be presented to the full board. We're just waiting for a confirmation for the date, because in accordance to with law, it has to be with a vote from the full board on the candidates as to who the person that would be selected as district manager. Now we because of the fact our bylaws don't address remote meetings, so we're going to be planning a in-person meeting for just full board members only, and so that and we will get a notification of that with the date and the time, along with resumes of individuals, the finalists, and then also I will give a full report as to what we did as a committee. And believe me, we will be very pleased, the committee, I know the chair and everyone else, when we finally finish this particular process. But according to our bylaws, that's the way it has to be. So and that's about it. We're waiting for confirmation on a venue, and you should be getting that. It has to be, according to the bylaws, it has to be 10 days. You have to get 10 days notice. The full board has to get 10 days notice of this meeting. So I believe that's about it, Mr. Singletary. So I don't know if anybody had any questions.
There's a question from Ms. Quint. So Suzanne?
Yes, question on the district leader process. Not district leader, district manager. So, Leonard, are you saying that we had a total of 12 applicants for
12
the,
resumes. 12 resumes were submitted.
just 12?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Dorothea?
Yes, I'm going to ask about the applicants also. Mr. Jordan, I believe you said that we had 12 applicants, but you only interviewed 7 people. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah,
Is
we
there-
didn't, yeah, the other 5, we didn't believe had the qualifications
Okay.
that we were looking for. Yeah.
All right,
for the-
thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Duke?
Yes, Mr. Jordan, you indicated that the bylaws don't address Zoom type meetings. Does that
Right.
mean they're excluded? If it's not addressed, why can't it be considered?
So let me answer that. So
Okay.
when we
Okay.
checked with Corporation Counsel to get a determination from the law department about Zoom meetings, the notion is that in accordance with our bylaws, not having any indication about virtual meetings, and technically there is no indication that has a provision under the open meeting law for Zoom meetings. The recommendation was that we would proceed with having an in-person meeting. That way it wouldn't draw any conflict or concerns about how the meeting was held.
I guess I'm not understanding why we've been able to conduct all of the community board business via Zoom meeting since the implementation of the pandemic regulations, but this particular meeting is excluded from what's been acceptable until now.
Yeah, I don't want to use the term excluded because that's not applicable. The portion of our bylaws that require a secret ballot, it's hard to do a secret ballot virtually. And so the recommendation of Corporation Counsel was to be in accordance with the bylaws by hosting a ballot and being able to give the results immediately at the meeting was recommended to be done in person. It really has less to do about virtual, but it's really has more to do about the provision that requires us to hold a secret ballot and give an immediate response of the tally.
Thank you for that clarification.
Sure. Mr. Jordan, thank you for your report.
Thank you.
All right, so we're moving up to the next section, section 9, where we have city agencies and community partners. I remind everyone that if you are representing an agency, a community partner, that you please indicate yourself in the chat. And so I am going to call on first, Tony Herbert. I happen to know Tony, full disclosure, from being someone who has been a voice of New Yorkers. While most of us know him from being a Brooklynite, he's really an advocate for New Yorkers. And some of you may recognize his face because he's been a strong advocate and a voice for when violence interrupts and causes havoc on our community. So without further ado, I'll let Mr. Herbert introduce himself. And Tony, it's good to see you again.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. Thank you. It's good to see you as well. And some of my other friends like Denise Peterson and Mr. Duke. I think Hazra is here too, who's got long-standing, voice, amongst the political circles and all that stuff. Greetings, everybody. Yes, I am officially now the Brooklyn North Borough Director for the Community Affairs Unit out of the Office of the Mayor, which is a little different. I want to make sure I qualify that. We are not an agency. We are an extension of City Hall, which affords us an opportunity to go out and speak on behalf of the mayor. So when you hear these reports, they would be similar in that aspect as you would hear from any other elected official's office. Trust me, and as I put in the chat, we quarterback the agencies. So I want to make that easier for you by being that extension to ensure that if you're not getting those calls returned, I'm that guy that will make sure that you're talking to who you need to talk to. And that's what I was hired to do. Just a little background real quick. I don't want to belabor. Yeah, I'm born and raised out of community board too. I was born in Cumberland Hospital, raised in the Fort Greene area, and then moved into Prospect Heights, but spent most of my time in community board too, attending 113, which at the time was Rothschild Junior High School, went to Weston House, which is in, I believe still considered in the confines. And a lot of my teenage years in my community work as a youth, 14 years of age, as a Clinton Hill Lion Club member. So, I'm very familiar with Community Board 2. I also represented it, for Congressman Towns when I was his special assistant in that area as well. So I'm very familiar with the confines, and the work that's being done and where it has come from and where it has gone to. And has done extensive work in public housing in Whitman, Ingersoll, and Farragut houses. So, I'm no stranger. I'm just coming home a little bit. And I just want to extend myself. I do plan to be very active, very involved, and at the same time, very accessible to ensure that Community Board 2 residents have access to the information and the resources you need. So, Mr. Chair, I pledge my support. I pledge the support of our mayor, who has made it very clear. Mayor Eric Adams said we got to get stuff done, and that's the mantra that we're operating from. And I guarantee, I'll utilize that voice that I've been able to raise and create for myself as an activist and advocate to help you do just that under the guidance of this mayor, who I have a lot of respect for. Thank you.
Thank you again. I can assure you that we're happy that you're home, so to speak, but we're gonna put you to work. There's a lot of agencies that we really want to hear from. Okay. We love having that type of direct access. And then I think selfishly speaking, Community Board 2 has always received the support of the borough president, Eric Adams. And it's nice to see that he's thinking in a way that's still supportive of the community boards, as is the current borough president as well. So I think it puts us in a unique position as a community board. And thank you for your participation. And we look forward to working closely with you.
Might I add this too? I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I want to thank Malcolm McDaniels, who is actually going to be my partner. We'll be doing a lot of the work together, casework and what have you. But also I bring that experience of working for the congressman, working in the city council, working in the state senate. So he sent the right guy over to do the right thing for the right community board.
Thank you.
All right.
Next, we're going to call on our wonderful friends from the library. So I'll start with that. Whoever wants to go first, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to speak to Community Board 2. My name is Rachel Tiemann. I'm managing librarian at Brooklyn Heights Library. We are currently offering Holds pickup service at 128 Pierpont Street from Monday to Friday, 10 to 4, although we are looking forward to opening this spring, and the light is at the end of the tunnel. We're getting very excited, and it's going to be really exciting when we do open. Right now, I want to share a few initiatives happening throughout the system. A lot of people are not always familiar with our app. I just want to share that the Brooklyn Public Library mobile app, it's free. You can download it from Google Play or Apple Store, and you're able to place holds in the app, renew books in the app. You can put multiple accounts on the app. You can also access your digital library card through the app and actually check out your books with your phone at our kiosks. You can also utilize the mobile checkout, which is taking a picture of the barcode on the back of the book with your phone and checking out your book that way. You can also see when your card might expire inside of the app. So it's a really helpful way to utilize and be able to take care of all of your physical transactions and print materials with the library. So just wanted everyone to be aware of the wonderfulness of the Brooklyn Library app. Just sharing a few things happening with Brooklyn Heights Library in particular. We're still doing virtual programming, although we are starting to dip our toe in the water with indoor programming for adults and teens. We are doing some virtual programming. We are showing Angels in America parts 1 and 2 with discussions after each movie, March 15th and 22nd. You can find out how to this through Zoom, and you can register for this through our website. We're also showing Dune on March 28th with a discussion after on March 29th. So that should be really exciting. And then local community group, Theater 2020. They've been performing in Brooklyn Heights for several years. They've done play readings with us. They're going to be doing George Bernard Shaw's The Dark Lady of the Sonnets on March 12th at 2 p.m. this Saturday, virtually. You can also sign up to be able to access that virtually. It's always a lot of fun, and they do a live talk back after the show. So I'm going to pass it on to my colleague, Tracy.
Hi, I'm Tracy Manchon, and I'm from the Clinton Hill Library. Brooklyn Public Library has teamed up with the Financial Coaching Corps of the Community Service Society of New York to provide free and confidential one-on-one financial assistance. These are virtual appointments. I'll put the email in the chat so you can set up an appointment. You can improve your credit. You can learn about using formal banking services, about reducing debt, creating and using budgets, increasing savings, applying for public benefits. And as I said, you can set up an appointment by emailing them. In addition, Clinton Hill is also doing a lot of virtual programs. We have 2 Meditation Monday programs, 3 virtual book discussions, a Women's History Month virtual trivia program, and the Friends of the Clinton Hill Library Pollinated Garden meeting. I'm going to put that in the chat. Our children's programs are still being filmed weekly and posted online on our Facebook page. And Adam Street is also doing some programs. They're going to be having a teen resume writing program. It's a virtual program. And the Friends of Adam Street Library will be having their first meeting on April 7th at 6 p.m. They're hoping to do it in person at Adam Street. I'll be putting that in the chat too, so you can find out about registering for that program. They're going to be doing a Zoom story time next Wednesday, and also a Women's History Month make your own stamp grab and go for next week. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Is that it for the library?
That's it. That's us.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'm going to call on Richard Morrow from the Red Cross.
Good evening, Chair Singletary. My name is Richard Morrow, and I'm the Greater New York Red Cross Community Relations Ambassador for Community Board 2. Around the country, there are presently 36 disaster relief operations. 33 are in the eastern portion of our country. All are climate change related. This week locally, we assisted 114 adults and 50 children following 53 disaster relief operations. I was able, through our office in New York, to contact our headquarters in Geneva, and I got some information I thought would be interesting to deal with the Ukraine situation and what's happening there on the ground, which we don't see. We just see bombs and things. So I wanted to bring that to our attention. Last week, we distributed more than 90,000 food and hygiene parcels on the move across Ukraine, including Mariupol, provided first aid training to more than 12,000 people in metro stations and bomb shelters, delivered more than 32 tons of food, blankets, medicine, medical supplies, trauma kits, and household items, assisted with the evacuation of people with disabilities, distributed official care items to over 7,000 people seeking shelter from shelling in the bomb shelters. For our part here in New York, our American Red Cross is deploying staff to Romania, Moldova, Poland, and other European countries to support the critical humanitarian relief efforts for Ukrainians. These highly trained crisis responders are supporting on-the-ground relief efforts alongside local teams, including the Polish Red Cross and Moldovan Red Cross. Additionally, the Red Cross is deployed 30 service to armed forces staff to countries neighboring Ukraine to support the emergency communication needs of U.S. military members so they can stay in touch with family members back in the U.S. These Red Crossers are distributing comfort kits containing hygiene items and other necessities to service members and U.S. State Department staff. I also wanted to state that our offices in Russia are also assisting with families there to contact their soldiers who are being hurt and damaged, and keeping communications going. We weren't able actually to get through to the Russian division of the Red Cross, but we know from what we've heard and seen that they are working hard as well. We at the Red Cross salute you, fellow volunteers, for the great work you are doing in Community Board 2. Have a wonderful evening.
Mr. Singh.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Morrow, for your presentation. Next up, we'll call on Nicholas Perry from the Comptroller's Office.
Hi, good evening, Community Board 2. My name is Nicholas Perry. I'm the Brooklyn Borough Director for the New York City Comptroller's Office. And tonight I bring greetings from our Comptroller, Brad Lander. I just have two short updates for you tonight. Recently, the New York City Comptroller, Brad Lander, marched in solidarity with the Fund Excluded Workers campaign, calling on Governor Kathy Hochul and the New York State Legislature to replenish the Excluded Workers Fund and create a permanent program to support undocumented, self-employed, and cash economy New Yorkers who are excluded from existing unemployment benefits. The second update is that the New York City Police, in a response to what's happening in Ukraine, the New York City Police Pension Fund and the New York City Employees Retirement System also voted to divest from Russian securities. And recently, Comptroller Lander released this quote that the decision for the trustees of the Teachers Retirement System is another step forward as we work to hold the Putin regime and those who continue to fund it accountable, while safeguarding the assets of thousands of active members and beneficiaries. That's all the updates I have for you. If anyone has anything pending with the Comptroller's Office, you can feel free to reach out to me directly and I will look into it. My cell number is 646-499-0749. I left my contact info in the chat, and that's my update. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll call on Betty Fibush.
Hi. Hi, good evening again. I'll be brief. I'm talking in relation to the Brooklyn Solid Waste Advisory, just to let people know that the composting program that has been slowly rolled out is due to be eliminated, at least in this first version of the budget. So you'll see a lot of advocacy around keeping the compost program, curbside collection, and making it mandatory, because that's an important step in terms of climate. We know that NYCHA is looking to modernize garbage recycling and disposal at the New York public housing development. So they're going to be doing a pilot either by having huge containers outside on the grounds or perhaps submerged in the ground and then taken by like a machine that hoists it up. And what this would do, this would be very important against rats so that the garbage is totally contained, and it will also help keep the grounds clean. So you'll be hearing more about that. And finally, there is some discussion about changes in the bottle bill. As you know, we probably, when did we start the bottle bill? Probably 20 years ago, 5 cents. Well, 5 cents doesn't mean as much. So there's some discussion about bringing that to 10 cents and also including more items. Like there are many things that we don't have a deposit and get the deposit back. And then those items often go in the landfill, which also result in climate change. So those are the main points for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. I'm going to call on Ethan from the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
Thank you, Chair Singletary. Good evening, everyone. I'm not going to bury the lead. For those of you that have been following the economic development news in the city, next week we have a new president and CEO starting. That's going to be Lindsay Green. I'm going to drop in the chat in just a second a link to the press release about that announcement. I have many very good things to say about Lindsay, but I don't want to say them because our legal and HR department might call that exerting undue influence. You might call it me sucking up. So what I'm going to do is just read two very quick quotes. The first one is, Lindsay Green is a public servant with a clear commitment to equity, inclusion, and economic development. I'm thrilled to welcome her as the new CEO of the Brooklyn Navy Yard, and I'm confident in her ability to build our city's growing urban manufacturing core, as well as her ability to navigate the complexities of our recovery from the pandemic. And that was none other than Councilmember Crystal Hudson. And then another favorite of CB2, this is what they had to say. Mayor Adams hit the jackpot with Lindsay Green taking the helm of the Brooklyn Navy Yard Development Corporation. The Navy Yard is located within our 33rd Council District, and I could not think of a better person for the job. Lindsay has the smarts, experience, and values to guide the Navy Yard to realize its full potential as a model in urban manufacturing, a hub for renewable energy, and the gold standard for local hiring. So that was Councilmember Lincoln Restler, who you all, I know, hold in very high regard, including his appearance earlier in the meeting. So I dropped the link in the chat. You can check out, that was actually the press conference where Mayor Adams announced his new economic development team, including a name that should also be familiar to you, and that is Andrew Kimball. And, oh, I'm sorry, someone has their mic on. There you go. Thank you. Andrew Kimball, who those of you who've been here with CB2, you know he was the president and CEO of Brooklyn Navy Yard Development Corporation before the current president, David Ehrenberg. And he's moving on. He went to Industry City first, and then he's moving on to helm the EDC. So we've got Lindsay now at the Brooklyn Navy Yard Development Corporation, Andrew at EDC. And if you want to watch that press conference or see any more of the quotes about those folks, you can check out the link in the chat. The second, very briefly, things I just want to talk about our workforce development efforts. The summer internship program, I just put the link there. Summer internship program, the deadline is Friday. So if you know any college students who either go to college in Brooklyn or live in Brooklyn or both, send them our way. And those are internships this summer with Yard businesses as well as BNYDC, and those are paid internships. And then the last link I'm putting in there is a link to our employment center. I've talked about this before. We have a lot of jobs at the Yard, and our employment center does a great job, our workforce development team, of connecting local residents to those jobs. I counted this morning, I think there was 29 jobs on there. And I've talked before about the many different titles, the many different skill sets needed, types of education. These are not all advanced manufacturing jobs that need, masters in very technical things or even PhDs. We have a lot of jobs at the Yard. You can let folks know we have our, when you go to that link, you'll see we have our information sessions Tuesdays, 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. People should go to those, and then after that can get a one-on-one appointment with one of the specialists at the employment center. All kidding aside, we're very happy to have Lindsay, and we're looking forward to her leadership on the mission of the Yard, which continues to be to create and preserve quality jobs, especially in the manufacturing sector, anchoring New York City's modern industrial sector and its businesses, and most importantly, connecting the local community with the resources and economic opportunities that are available on the Yard. And I should say for Lindsay, we weren't able to get Carol Ann, so we did have to settle for Lindsay. But I look forward to coming back to you next month and updating you on the new stuff under Lindsay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Ethan. Next up, based on what I see in the chat, Royal Rothbard.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Raul Rothblatt. I'm representing the Friends of Abolitionist Place, and we are working with the Brooklyn NAACP and the Girl Scouts of Greater New York and Assemblymember Joanne Simon, and we're going to put together a discussion about abolitionist place. We want to create community engagement. Right now, we are the Friends of Abolitionist Place represents 227 Duffield, and now it's our chance to act like, we're leaders in the community. So we're going to give a discussion about the history of the block, about the very important history of the Black suffragists who were leaders here in Community Board 2, and our vision for the Sisters in Freedom Monument. So I'll have a formal announcement, but that's going to be on Zoom on March 24th at 7 p.m. It might change a little bit, but March 24th, Thursday at 7 p.m., we invite you all to really to envision how we can create a really great space down at that spot that we worked so hard to protect. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Raul. I'm sorry, is there anybody that we perhaps didn't call upon that I don't see listed in the chat? Okay, great. Moving on to the next item on the agenda. Other board business. Is there any other board business to come before us this evening? Okay. Next item is community forum, any new business. Are there any items that need to come under this category? Okay, great. And the next item I see is item number 12. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Du.
Just one item for the community board. There is a movement afoot from the Vanderbilt Avenue Block Association to close off Gates Avenue between Vanderbilt and Fulton Street, a very busy corridor. That preliminary request has been tacitly approved by the borough president and the commissioner of DOT, as well as our local council member. But we don't have any of the statistics or the engineering studies that would validate that. So the local community is asking that DOT provide that information before they proceed with the closure. Thank you.
Anyone else with any items that they'd like to bring before us? Hazra? You're on mute. Hazra?
I said a motion to adjourn. I'd like to move to
Sold.
number 12.
Sold. No need to, anybody object, any discussion? Good night. God bless you. Everybody get home safe. Thank you.
Good night, everybody. And
Good night,
Caroline,
everybody.
great seeing you.
Yeah.